Hi, welcome back to My Hero's Journey. This is Juanita Thomas. And so with this chapter, I want to talk about my innermost cave. So here I'm going to talk about the challenges that I faced that really just brought me to a level of questioning and doubting and just wanting to give up. And it started pretty much when I was married. I was pregnant. I was near completion of college, and it was an unplanned pregnancy. I was not ready. It was not in my plan. My plan, of course, was to complete college, get married, then have kids. So, we ended up getting married, and it was a really, really rocky pregnancy. There was verbal abuse, there was some physical abuse, and I got to a point where after I had my son that I wanted to die. I just felt like, maybe since I had made his life so miserable that if I wasn't in it, that it would just be a lot better. And I actually tried to kill myself. I actually tried to commit suicide. And I know that this was God's hand in it because of the fact that as I was taking the pills, my throat constricted and I actually gagged and threw up everything I had swallowed. And I had locked myself in the bathroom, so, and appeared to be just, using the bathroom, the water was running, and no one would have known until it was over. But my mom was there, and my ex-husband, my husband at the time was there, and my baby was maybe not even 6 months old, I don't think. And when I threw up everything and finally came out of the bathroom, I talked to my mom, and I was just like, just tried to kill myself, and I couldn't swallow the pills. And, and instead of her just, coming at me like, why would you do that? She just consoled me, just like, you need to live for your son. He needs you. And it just gave me a new perspective of why I needed to live, and not just for myself, but that somebody was depending on me. And that was a new point for me. I decided to live for him, but it was still hard. Like, I had to bear a lot of things, and and finally, the physical abuse did stop, but the verbal abuse just continued, and the emotional abuse, just constantly telling me, you're not the type of woman I would have married, or, you're not driven, you're not a go-getter. And then to have to contradict that and say, you're always doing this and doing that, and, you don't think about things, you don't take the time to sit there and think things out, or, it was just like this constant battle of just tearing me down and trying to make me feel like I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't able to do this or do that, or that I was forgetful. I finally got to the point where I couldn't stay in my marriage anymore, and I kept asking, like, how much more can I take of this? And I even got to the point where I was just like, God, if this is what marriage is all about, I don't want it. I'll just, I'll be by myself. I'll be single if this is what marriage is all about. And in that time period is when I felt that storm that I mentioned before, that I felt like something was brewing, that my life was about to be flipped upside down. And, it did. And, my relationship, my marriage was already deteriorating and crumbling. We had lost our father-in-law to cancer, and, and it just the communication between me and my spouse was almost non-existent at that point. But yet at the same time, I was still expected to be wife. And, but he was giving his heart to someone else. And, he might not have had an actual sexual, what's the word I'm looking for? Affair. I might not have been able to catch him in that, but I did sense that his heart belonged to someone else. And, it really hurt me because I viewed marriage as like my best friend. Like, he's supposed to be my best friend, and he wasn't. And I came to him and was like, I figured out that what's missing is our friendship is gone. And I was like, we need to work on that. And, and unfortunately, he took that in the wrong context of thinking that I was saying that we should just be friends, and that's not what I was saying at all. So it was just like this constant like clash of communication, like me speaking and then not being received. And so I finally walked away, and in that me walking away, I struggled with, am I beautiful? Am I a good mom? And can I handle this? And, with him, 2 months after I moved out, he, sent me to court, for spousal support and alimony, and trying to get child support for the kids, and because I made more than him in the marriage, so he came at me with all these things. And in the process of us going to, before we even got into court, he put a restraining order out on me where I couldn't see my children, and that was like the worst thing ever, because my kids, of course, as I mentioned before at the beginning, that I was living for my children because my mom said I need to live for them. And so, for him to take that away from me was like, God, what is going on? Like, those are my kids, that's my life, that's, that's what I am, that's what I do. And so, that trickled on over to where ultimately in our 5-year divorce battle and custody battle, I ultimately did lose the kids in custody, primary custody, to my ex-husband, which was devastating to me, because I never at any point expected that would happen, because initially I did get custody of our children, I did have them. And so, me going through this identity searching, trying to figure out how to raise my children by myself, and when they're at home with me, and how to get them to have respect for me, and where when I was in my marriage, I used to go to my husband and say, they're not acting right, I need you to step in. And now it was me by myself, like, how do I navigate this? How do I figure out what's the best method to parent my children? Do I need to be a harsh disciplinarian, or can I just use love? Like, I had to find a balance, because what worked for one child didn't necessarily work for the other, and it was just like, what do I do? How do I get through to them to be able to get them to see what they're needing, and how I can get them to respect me, and not be damaging to them at the same time? Because there's a fine line between raising your child up in a loving manner, but where they follow the rules and are obedient to authority, or being just this harsh disciplinarian where they fear you, but they don't necessarily like you. And I didn't want that. I wanted my kids to feel comfortable to be able to talk to me and trust me and believe that I'm there for them, and I wanted to have that relationship with them. And so it was just this battle. And so when I ultimately lost them in that point of the custody, it was just like, well, what do I do now? Like, I felt like I was non-existent as a mom. I felt like I wasn't as influential for them, because I wasn't there all the time like I used to. And like I said before, I was living for them. So God used that time period of me being by myself to just really dig deep and uproot a lot of that lies and deception and hatred, self-hatred that I had in myself, and just uprooting the negativity, the self-images that I had, and reshaping my identity, to help me understand that I am more than my children. I am more than being a wife. I am more than an employee. I am God's daughter. And so it was like God just really, in that storm, had me centrally focused on Him. And in my next chapter, The Ordeal, I'll go into detail as to how He started shaping and defining and showing me who I am in Him. And even through the circumstances I went through, the lessons that He pulled out, so that I could see who I am. So thank you for joining me in this chapter. Again, I'm Juanita Thomas, and this is my hero's journey.